Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And so today we're going to be doing a straight from the headlines, WTF edition. I have 3 stories for you and each of them holds their own, what the did I just hear? So stay tuned and see what we're covering today. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So for the first story, coming from 2 sources today, we have the necrophilic cop. So our first source is People Crime. LAPD officer allegedly caught fondling dead woman's breast on body cam footage. Written by Christine Pelisek on December 4th of 2019. And the second source is CBS News. LAPD officer arrested on charge of fondling dead woman's breast. And this one comes from three authors, Phil Hessel, Eric Leonard, and Andrew Blankenstein, and this one was written on December 12th of 2019. Unlike normal, this one is not going to be one of those where I mash them together. It's going to be, I'm reading from the People source, and then we're going to have an update from the CBS source. So let's get started. An unidentified officer assigned to the LAPD Central Division in downtown Los Angeles has been put on administrative leave after responding to a call about a dead woman in a residential unit. Josh Rubenstein, LAPD chief spokesperson, tells People, quote, "There was an accusation of that, and when we learned of it, we initiated the administrative investigation and then assigned him home pending the outcome of the investigation." And you can kind of see where they're going very vague with everything right from the start. Rubenstein states that the accusations are, quote, "absolutely troubling if it is true." Rubenstein declined to discuss the specific allegations in the case. Quote, "It is difficult for us to say anything unless we have done the investigation. Right now, we want to allow the investigation to run its course. It will be very thorough, and it will be very sensitive as well." The Los Angeles Times broke the story, stating that the officer reported to a scene with his partner where they observed the deceased female. Quote, "They both went out of the room, and then the individual went back in on his own," a source familiar with the incident told People. The Los Angeles Times reported that the accused officer allegedly turned off his body camera and then fondled the deceased woman's breast. Although the camera was turned off during the incident, it was picked up by an automatic buffer, which automatically saves all footage from 2 minutes before the device is activated, according to the Los Angeles Times. The incident occurred on October 20th of 2019 and came to light during a random departmental audit of body-worn cameras, according to the Los Angeles Times. And it is unclear how the female died. That really does not play a part in this story. However she died, this did not deserve to happen to her. Putting that out there, nobody cares. Quote, "The department isn't going to take someone off duty, take them away from the community, and assign them home duty if there wasn't anything on the video," the source tells People. Quote, "They are going to be working both administratively and potentially criminally until they decide whether they want to send something to the district attorney's office to file. I know that both of those channels are being pursued." Rubenstein stated that body cam footage has always been audited, but the frequency has been increased recently. Quoting, "We have always been auditing just recently, and it has nothing to do with anything with this story. We wanted to increase the frequency of the random audits. We just put a new protocol in place just a few weeks ago." Sorry about that. Now the update from CBS News. Officer David Rojas, 27, was arrested on a charge that he fondled the breast of a dead woman from a call that he responded to. Rojas has been with the LAPD for 4 years and was arrested by the department's Internal Affairs Division. Internal Affairs detectives were examining Rojas' entire career at the LAPD, including reviewing other on-duty body cam videos. Rojas is charged with one count of having sexual contact with the human remains in the October 20th, 2019 incident. Rojas was released the same day on $20,000 bail from jail records and does not currently have a clear attorney of record. The LA County DA's office said Rojas faces up to 3 years in prison if convicted of the charges. Quote, "The incident is extremely disturbing and does not represent the values of the Los Angeles Police Department." That comes from the chief, Michael Moore. So now the chief of the police department is not backing him. But we go one step further. The board of directors of the Los Angeles Police Protective League, and that is the police officers union, called the alleged acts vile in this statement. "We hope that the DA, Jackie Lacey, charging Mr. Rojas for his vile alleged crimes will bring some solace to the deceased woman's family during their time of grieving. The Los Angeles Police Protective League will not defend Mr. Rojas during his criminal proceedings, and his alleged behavior is abhorrent and an affront to every law enforcement professional working for the LAPD." So now the chief of police of the Los Angeles Police Department and the LAPD Protective League, which is the police officers union, are not backing him. He is solely on his own, as he should be, because this is completely disgusting and completely not something you would expect from a professional. Now that we have finished with the necrophilic officer, we're going to move on to our second story of this video, and that is the love that lost its head. So our first source is People Crime. Virginia woman who decapitated her boyfriend gets life in prison, written by Chris Harris on January 28th, 2020. The second source is Oxygen Crime, and that one is Virginia woman sentenced for 2018 April Fool's Day beheading of her boyfriend, written by Dorian Griffer on January 28th of 2020. Jurors recommended no mercy for Rowena Cheryl Miles, who killed Bo White in 2018. January 27th of 2020, Rowena Miles, 43, who was charged with first-degree murder in the death of her 29-year-old boyfriend, Bo White, was sentenced by Mercer County Judge Mark Willis to spend the, quote, remainder of her natural life behind bars. Judge Willis accepted the recommendation of the jurors who convicted Miles on December 9th of 2019. Under the sentence, Miles will never be eligible for parole. Authorities suspected Miles killed White on April Fool's Day 2018 after receiving a call from a neighbor via 911 when they saw Miles covered in blood. Miles was arrested, still covered in blood. White, 29, was found dead in his Lenoir, West Virginia home with his head detached from his body, which was later found in the woods. When officers arrived, Miles was wearing a single glove. The matching glove was recovered in White's bedroom. Miles told officers she had been thrown through a glass door, but would not say by whom. Miles told officers they had to take her back to White's home, quote, and let me get my heads, end quote. Associated Press reported that a forensic pathologist testified at Miles' trial, saying White died from multiple sharp force injuries, including 13 stab wounds to the chest, 2 to the neck, 2 to the abdomen, and 1 to the back. There were also 37 wounds to his head. During Miles' trial, prosecutors introduced a witness who told the court how Miles asked to borrow gasoline and a chainsaw from him. Another witness advised that they'd previously seen Miles and White argue, and Miles makes statements such as, quote, "Your head will be in my lap." They also stated that Miles, quote Miles, the witness quote stated, "She just did not seem to be all there." I worded that very funny in my script. Not very good. The jury deliberated for 2 hours before reaching its verdict. Miles' defense team argued that the cards were stacked against her. Sid Bell, Miles' attorney, had previously filed a motion to dismiss the jury's verdict, insisting that his client had been wrongly accused, blaming sloppy police work and pointing the finger instead at White's father, Jimmy White. Sloppy police work. She's arrested, covered in blood. But okay, let's go down this rabbit hole. Bell argued that Jimmy White, who they contended was at his son's home that night, murdered Bo in a jealous rage. But he gave no reason for such jealous rage. Bell also pointed to a trove of swords and knives collected from Jimmy White's residence, and Bell stated that the criminal defense team only learned of the collection after the trial. Bell also said that prosecutors made, quote, "numerous references alluding to the fact that Miles was a drug fiend during the trial and misleading characterization." Bell alleged that it was ultimately to prejudice the jury's verdict. Quote, "No one testified about that. The effect of that was to unfairly prejudice the jury against her and deny her a fair trial." Bell contended that prosecutors pointing out that Miles had a tattoo on her chest that read, quote, "a special kind of crazy," end quote, understatement of the year, unfairly steered the jury to a guilty verdict. Quote, "There was no way the juries had any ideas of tattoo until prosecutors gave the idea to them," Bell stressed. Prosecutors were not convinced by Bell's protestations. Quote, "Is Jimmy White as clean and pure as a driven stove? No, he's a flawed man." In a statement, Mercer County prosecuting attorney George Sittler thanked detectives for the outstanding investigation in the case that allowed us to get the maximum penalty under the law for this heinous and brutal murder. And this takes another special kind of crazy off of the streets, so maybe some men can keep their heads. So now we're going to move to the third and final story, which is needing an exorcism or needing an excuse. The first source is People Crime. Kansas woman decapitated ex-boyfriend's mom with steak knives in fight over a painting, by Chris Harris on February 7th of 2020. And the second source is the Wichita Eagle. Wichita woman in beheading case found guilty of first-degree murder by Amy Renee Liker, February 6th of 2020. The case came down to a question of whether the beheading was premeditated. Hilliard was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder in the beheading of her ex-boyfriend's mother with 2 steak knives in 2017. Rachel Hilliard, 37, contacted Mickey Davis, 63, on April 9th, 2017, to come to her home to retrieve Davis's son's property around 1 p.m., or Hilliard was going to place the items on the curb. Hilliard's ex-boyfriend was serving time in prison for murder, and Davis was going to the home to retrieve his property from her home. Davis went to Hilliard's home at the time agreed upon with her 9-year-old grandson from another son. Soon after arriving, an altercation occurred over a painting in the laundry room. Now, some reports have the 9-year-old running to a neighbor's home. Other reports say that the 9-year-old ran to Davis's truck and used her cell phone. Either way, 911 was contacted. In the source that has him going to Davis's truck, they state that Hilliard attempted to get in the truck with the 9-year-old and was asking him who he was calling, and she was informed 911. Hilliard seemed to realize, either way the story goes, that there was an issue and police were on their way. Sedgwick County DA Mark Bennett stated that Hilliard took steps to make sure that no one could see the decapitation, including closing the garage, locking her doors, and drawing the window shades on her home. Hilliard used 2 steak knives to decapitate Davis because the first one broke while she was decapitating Davis. Once the decapitation was finished, Hilliard left Davis's head in the kitchen sink. When police arrived on the scene, they found Hilliard crouched in the bathroom, covered in blood. The jury listened to 2 days of testimony and evidence. Testimony included evidence from police officers, a DNA expert, a local coroner, residents of the neighborhood where the crime took place, and Hilliard herself. The coroner testified that Davis's cause of death was sharp force injuries to her neck. Now remember that. Sharp force injuries to her neck is what actually killed Davis. Hilliard took the stand in her own defense, testifying that she heard voices instructing her to kill Davis on that day in April. She also testified that Davis was not breathing and not moving when she started decapitating her with the steak knives. Jurors saw crime scene and autopsy photos, police body cam footage showing that Hilliard was calm and compliant after she was in custody, and a videotaped interview detectives had with the 9-year-old grandchild of Davis who witnessed the beginning of the altercation and called for help. Now, I'm going to make this clear. The 9-year-old only saw the beginning battery of the altercation. He saw Hilliard striking his grandmother and went to call for help. He luckily did not see any of the decapitation or things of that nature that went on after that. Luckily, he saw the beginning strikes, ran to call for help. That is all. A pastor named Terry Fox of the Summit Church says Rachel Hilliard sought out his services for a possible exorcism in the days before she was accused of beheading 63-year-old Mickey Davis. Fox said that he visited with Hilliard in her home to evaluate her claims. Kansas has one of the most restrictive laws for citing mental illness in criminal cases, and because of this, Hilliard's claim of hearing voices in the local church performing an exorcism at her home days before the murder were not introduced as defenses in her trial. You may ask yourself, why is that? Because Hilliard was never diagnosed with a mental illness by a doctor, and exorcisms are not recognized as anything but conjecture. So, those things cannot be used as a defense. There is no documentation, there is no way of proving it, it's just hearsay. So those cannot be raised as defenses. But they were probably way better defenses than what her defense was, and we'll get to that. Jury needed only 4 hours after Hilliard testified to reject the defense position that the attack was simply a matter of, quote, bad decisions, end quote, that didn't involve a plan of murder. You heard me, quote, bad decisions. Sedgwick County DA Mark Bennett stated, quote, for her own reasons, Rachel Hilliard had had it with Mickey Davis, no provocation, no words. Rachel said nothing. She beats her down. She goes back for one knife. She goes back for another after the first knife broke. Does that not tell you there's premeditation here? Hilliard's attorney, Quentin Pittman, stated in his closing arguments that Hilliard did kill Davis, but he argued that Davis was dead when Hilliard decapitated her. Pittman told jurors, "What we have here are bad decisions and horrible consequences. My client killed Mrs. Davis, but there's no premeditation." Now, bad decisions and horrible consequences. That was the defense. Bad decisions and horrible consequences. That's the defense. What the fuck kind of defense is that? Jeremy Rush, the son of Mickey Davis and the father of the 9-year-old boy that called for help, said, quote, "Thank God that she is off the streets so this doesn't happen to anybody else's family." Of his son, he states, quote, "Actually, he was the heart of the case. He knew exactly what happened. He was very smart and brave young man. Love him to death." Rush admitted that the guilty verdict was bittersweet for him. "This is justice for Mickey. We might have won this battle, but we've lost the whole war because our mom is not here and she should be here." Hilliard is facing a possible death sentence, but sentencing is on March 27th of 2020. Now, that has to be the worst offense I've ever heard. Bad decisions and horrible consequences. I can't fathom. But that is going to end our WTF straight from the headlines. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and ring that bell. In the comment section down below, let me know what you think of each of these stories. We have the necrophilic officer, we have the love that lost its head, and we have needing an exorcism or needing an excuse. Let me know which one you think is the worst story out of the three. My vote for the worst defense out of the three is the third one. Bad decisions and horrible consequences. I think that the officer has no defense, and the second lady is just really crazy. But moving on. In the description box down below, of course, I will have all of these articles linked for you guys to go back and look at them if you want. There are 3 ways to support this channel. There's Patreon, PayPal, and Minds. All of my social media will be linked down below. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Also, my email is down there. So if you have any stories that you want me to cover, you can send them to me on any of those. With all that said, guys, that's going to do it for today, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.